Join us for the heartwarming tale of Mariana Silva and her young son Lucas as they find refuge at Serra Dourada farm. When a desperate mother seeking a fresh start meets a grieving farmer with a kind heart, an unexpected bond forms amid looming threats from the past. This story of love, family, and second chances reminds us that sometimes home is found in the most unexpected places. Before we begin this story, comment below where you're watching from. The sunset painted the sky in golden hues as Mariana Silva stood at the entrance of Serra Dourada farm, clutching her sleeping 2-year-old son Lucas to her chest. Her shoulders ached from carrying both the child and the worn backpack that contained everything they owned. Sweat trickled down her back despite the cool evening breeze. She took a deep breath and walked toward the main house. "This has to work," she whispered to herself. "It just has to." At 28, Mariana's face showed the strain of the past. Few years. Her once bright eyes now held a cautious wariness. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her clothes, though clean, were faded from too many washes. But despite everything, she carried herself with dignity. Lucas stirred in her arms, his small hand clutching her shirt. Even in sleep, his little face looked sad, too serious for a child so young. Mariana kissed his forehead gently. "We're going to be okay now, baby," she said softly. "This is our new start." The past 2 years had been a nightmare. When Carlos, her boyfriend of 3 years, found out she was pregnant, he disappeared overnight, left her with nothing but a note saying he wasn't ready for this. She had faced judgment from neighbors, struggled through temporary jobs that barely paid the bills, and spent countless nights crying after Lucas finally fell asleep. The job ad she'd found online seemed like divine intervention. Cook's assistant, needed at Serra Dourada farm, housing provided. It was her last hope, far away from the city and the memories that haunted her. She didn't want much, just a safe place for her son to grow up and steady work to support them. As Mariana approached the sprawling farmhouse with its wide porch and rocking chairs, an older woman with grey hair and kind eyes stepped out. "You must be Mariana," the woman said, her voice warm. "I'm Sophia, the housekeeper. We've been expecting you." "Thank you for the opportunity," Mariana replied, adjusting Lucas in her arms. "I promise I'm a hard worker." Sophia smiled. "Come inside." "Dear, you both look exhausted." The kitchen was large and homey, with copper pots hanging from the ceiling and the smell of fresh bread in the air. Sophia showed Mariana to a small but clean bedroom with an adjoining bathroom at the back of the house. There was even a crib for Lucas. "The owner had it brought down from the attic when he heard you were bringing a little one," Sophia explained, noticing Mariana's surprised expression. "That was very kind of him," Mariana said softly, laying Lucas down in the crib. The boy didn't wake, too exhausted from their long journey. "Mr. Rodrigo is a good man," Sophia said. "Quiet, keeps to himself mostly, but fair and generous. You'll meet him tomorrow. Rest now. Kitchen duties start at 6. After Sophia left, Mariana sat on the edge of the bed and finally let herself cry. Not from sadness this time, but from relief. Maybe here, far from everything, they could find peace. Morning came quickly. Mariana was already in the kitchen helping Sophia prepare breakfast when she heard boots on the porch steps. "That'll be Mr. Rodrigo," Sophia said. "He's always up with the sun." The kitchen door opened and Rodrigo Costa stepped in. At 30, he had the weathered look of a man who worked outdoors, with tanned skin and strong hands. His dark hair was slightly too long, and a short beard framed his serious face. But it was his eyes that caught Mariana's attention, deep brown and filled with a sadness she recognized all too well. "Good morning, Sophia," he said, hanging his hat on a hook by the door. Then he noticed Mariana. "You must be the new help." "Yes, sir, Mariana Silva." She wiped her hands on her apron, suddenly nervous. "Thank you for the job opportunity," he nodded. "Sophia says you're a good cook." "I try my best." A small noise from the doorway made them all turn. Lucas stood there in his pajamas, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, his eyes wide as he took in the unfamiliar surroundings. "And who might this be?" Rodrigo asked, his voice softening. "My son, Lucas," Mariana said, moving to pick up the boy. He's two. To her surprise, Rodrigo crouched down to Lucas's level. Hello there, young man. Welcome to Serra Dourada. Lucas stared at Rodrigo with solemn eyes, but didn't hide his face as he usually did with strangers. Instead, he took a small step forward, curious. Rodrigo smiled, the first real smile Mariana had seen from him, and it transformed his face completely. There's fresh coffee, Mr. Rodrigo, Sophia interrupted, placing a mug on the table. Thank you. He stood up and turned to Mariana. Make yourselves at home. Sophia will show you the ropes. With that, he took his coffee and headed back outside. He doesn't say much, Sophia explained as she prepared a small plate of food for Lucas. Not since Maria died. Maria? Mariana asked. His wife. Passed away 3 years ago during childbirth. Lost the baby too. Sophia shook her head sadly. He hasn't been the same since. Throws himself into work, barely socializes. The whole county's been trying to get him to move on, but he just isn't interested. Mariana felt a pang of sympathy. She knew what it was like to carry grief like a shadow. The days fell into a rhythm. Mariana learned the kitchen routines quickly, impressing Sophia with her skills. Lucas began to explore the farm under Mariana's watchful eye, fascinated by the chickens and the vegetable garden. Rodrigo was rarely around during the day, busy with farm operations, but they would see him at mealtimes. One evening, about 2 weeks after their arrival, Mariana was sitting on the porch steps watching Lucas play with some toy cars in the dirt, when Rodrigo returned from the fields. He looked tired, his shirt stained with sweat and dust. Hard day? She asked. Fence repair, he replied, sitting down beside her. Never ends. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Lucas. He seems happier, Rodrigo observed. Not so sad-eyed anymore. Mariana was surprised he'd noticed. Yes, he's settling in. He likes it here. And you? She glanced at him. I'm grateful for the work. Rodrigo nodded, then stood up. I need to clean up for dinner. As days turned into weeks, Mariana began to notice small changes. Rodrigo started spending more time at the house. He would linger after meals, sometimes asking about her day. Once she caught him showing Lucas how to pet the farm cat gently. One Saturday morning, Mariana was hanging laundry when she heard laughter. Lucas's childish giggle mixed with a deeper chuckle. She peered around the corner to see Rodrigo holding Lucas up to collect eggs from the chicken coop, making funny clucking noises that had the boy in stitches. Mo, Lucas called him, unable to properly say mocho, the Portuguese word for mister that Mariana had taught him to use respectfully. Mo chicken. Instead of correcting him, Rodrigo smiled. That's right, buddy. Chicken. That night, after Lucas was asleep, Mariana found Rodrigo sitting alone on the porch. Thank you, she said, for being kind to him. Rodrigo looked up at her. He's a good kid, smart. He likes you, Mariana said. He doesn't warm up to people easily. Neither do I, Rodrigo admitted. Then, after a pause, Why Serra Dourada, Mariana? It's pretty isolated out here. She hesitated, then decided on honesty. I needed somewhere far away, somewhere new. Running from something? Someone, she corrected. Lucas's father. He left when I got pregnant, but lately he's been sending messages, making threats. She wrapped her arms around herself. I couldn't take the chance. Rodrigo's jaw tightened. You're safe here. For now, she said, until I save enough to move on. You're planning to leave? Eventually. I can't impose forever. Rodrigo stood up, suddenly looking uncomfortable. You're not imposing. Your work is good and... He stopped, seeming to struggle with his words. Lucas brings life to this place. Before Mariana could respond, he turned and walked away. The next day, Mariana found a hand-carved wooden horse on the kitchen table with Lucas's name burned into the base. Sophia smiled knowingly when she saw it. He spent all evening on that, the housekeeper said. First time I've seen him pick up his carving tools in years. More gifts followed. A small wooden truck, a repaired swing hanging from the old mango tree behind the house. And one morning Mariana woke to find sunflower seedlings planted outside her window. How did he know? She asked Sophia, watching the tiny plants reaching toward the sun. You mentioned it was your grandmother's favorite flower, Sophia said. He listens more than you think." Mariana didn't know what to make of it all. She'd come to Serra Dourada looking only for shelter and work, not whatever this was becoming. The thought of letting anyone close again terrified her. What if Rodrigo changed his mind? What if he decided they were too much trouble? Lucas was already getting attached, following Mo around whenever he could. One evening she found Rodrigo sitting on the porch steps, Lucas fast asleep in his lap. The boy had spent the day helping Rodrigo in the barn and had worn himself out completely. "I can take him," Mariana offered, reaching for her son. Rodrigo looked up at her, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. "Mariana," he said quietly, "I know you two came as a package deal, but you should know, sir, you're not a burden to me. You're the love that came complete." Mariana froze, her heart hammering in her chest. "Mr. Costa." "Rodrigo," he corrected gently. "Rodrigo," she whispered. "I think you're confused. You're being kind because you're a good man, but—" "I know what I feel," he interrupted. "I haven't felt anything in 3 years, not since Maria. But you and Lucas, you've brought something back to life here. Not just in the house, but in me." He carefully stood up with Lucas still in his arms. "I'm not asking for anything. Just don't run again, not yet." As he handed the sleeping boy to her, their hands touched, and Mariana felt a jolt run through her. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved. "Think about it," Rodrigo said softly, then stepped back. "Good night, Mariana." That night, Mariana couldn't sleep. She watched Lucas breathing peacefully in his crib and thought about the warmth in Rodrigo's eyes, the gentleness in his hands. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where they weren't alone, where they belonged somewhere. With someone. The thought was as terrifying as it was beautiful. "What should we do, baby?" she whispered to her sleeping son. "Is it safe to stay? To hope?" Lucas shifted in his sleep, his little face relaxed and content. Here at Serra Dourada, the shadows in his eyes were finally beginning to fade. And maybe, just maybe, Mariana's were too. But as dawn broke over the hills, bringing a new day to Serra Dourada farm, Mariana had no idea that their fragile peace was about to be shattered. The past she'd fled was already on its way to find her. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen windows as Mariana prepared breakfast. She'd barely slept, Rodrigo's words echoing in her mind. "You're the love that came complete." No one had ever spoken to her that way before. Sophia entered the kitchen, immediately noticing Mariana's distraction. "Everything all right, dear? You seem a million miles away." "I'm fine," Mariana said quickly, focusing on the eggs she was scrambling. "Just thinking." Sophia gave her a knowing look. "About our Rodrigo, perhaps?" Mariana's cheeks flushed. "He said some things last night that confused me." "That man hasn't shown interest in anyone since Maria died," Sophia said, lowering her voice. Whatever he said, he meant it. Before Mariana could respond, Lucas ran into the kitchen, his face lit up with excitement. "Mo coming," he announced, pointing toward the window. Sure enough, Rodrigo was walking up from the barn, carrying something in his hands. When he entered the kitchen, Mariana saw it was a small wooden toolbox perfectly sized for a child. "Morning," he said, nodding to Sophia. His eyes lingered on Mariana for a moment before he crouched down to Lucas's level. "I made this for you. Birdie, real tools but small enough for your hands." Lucas's eyes widened as Rodrigo opened the box to reveal tiny wooden versions of hammers, wrenches, and screwdrivers. "Tools like Mo," Lucas exclaimed, carefully touching each piece. "That's right," Rodrigo smiled. "So you can help me fix things." Mariana watched the exchange, her heart twisting with both joy and fear. Joy at seeing her son so happy, and fear of what would happen when they inevitably had to leave. "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't have to do that." Rodrigo stood up, meeting her eyes. "I wanted to." The moment stretched between them until Sophia cleared her throat. "Breakfast is getting cold," she announced, breaking the tension. Later, that morning, while Lucas napped and Sophia went into town for supplies, Mariana found herself alone in the kitchen with Rodrigo. He was sitting at the table going through farm accounts while she prepared dough for bread. "Did you mean what you said last night?" she finally asked, her back to him. She heard his chair scrape as he stood up. Every word. Mariana turned to face him, wiping flour from her hands. "Why? You barely know me." "I know enough," Rodrigo said, taking a step closer. "I know you're strong. You left everything behind to protect your son. You work hard and never complain. You sing old Portuguese lullabies when you think no one's listening." Mariana looked down, unexpectedly moved. "That's not enough reason to care about you?" Rodrigo finished. "Maybe not, but I do anyway." When she looked up, he was standing, right in front of her. "Mariana, I'm not asking for promises. I just want you to know there's a place for you here. For both of you, if you want it." Their eyes locked, and for a moment Mariana allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to belong here, with this quiet, steadfast man who carved toys for her son and planted her grandmother's favorite flowers. The telephone's sharp ring shattered the moment. Rodrigo reluctantly moved away to answer it. "Serra Dourada Farm," he said. His expression darkened as he listened. "Yes, she works here. Who's asking?" After a pause, he added firmly, "I suggest you stop looking," before hanging up. He turned to Mariana, who had gone pale. "Someone named Carlos, looking for you and Lucas." Mariana felt her knees weaken. She gripped the counter for support. "How did he find us?" "He didn't," Rodrigo assured her. "He's just calling farms in the region. Said he heard you might be working at one of them." "What if he comes here?" Mariana whispered, fear evident in her voice. Rodrigo's jaw tightened. "Then he'll have to deal with me." That night, after putting Lucas to bed, Mariana sat on the porch steps, wrapped in a shawl against the evening chill. The stars were brilliant in the clear country sky, but she couldn't appreciate their beauty. All she could think about was Carlos, finding them. She heard the door open behind her and knew without looking that it was Rodrigo. "Can't sleep?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Every time I close my eyes, I see him showing up here," she admitted. "Taking Lucas." "Why would he want Lucas now?" "He left when you were pregnant." Mariana sighed deeply. "His family owns businesses in the city. They're all about image. Recently, his father announced he's running for mayor. Carlos called me last month, saying they needed to fix the situation for the campaign. Said it looked bad that he had an abandoned son." Rodrigo's expression darkened. "So after 2 years of nothing, he wants to play father for appearances?" "He doesn't want to be a father," Mariana said bitterly. "He just wants to control where Lucas is and who sees him. He offered money if I'd move back and pretend we're one big happy family. And when you refused, he got nasty, said if I didn't cooperate, he'd take Lucas anyway. That his family has connections, that no judge would side with a poor single mother. Over them." Rodrigo reached out and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against her skin. "I won't let that happen." "You can't stop it," she said sadly. "Maybe we should leave. Find somewhere even further away." "Running isn't the answer," Rodrigo said firmly. "Not this time. What choice do I have?" Rodrigo was quiet for a moment, then said, "Stay, fight. Let me help you." "Why would you do that?" Mariana asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "Because in the short time you've been here, you and Lucas have become important to me," Rodrigo said simply. "More important than I thought possible." 2 days later, Sofia rushed into the kitchen where Mariana was preparing lunch. "There's a fancy car coming up the drive," she said, looking worried. "City plates." Mariana's heart sank. She quickly wiped her hands and ran to Lucas, who was playing in the corner with his wooden toys. "Where's Rodrigo?" she asked, panic rising in her voice. "Out checking the north pasture. Pedro went to fetch him, but it'll take time." The sound of car doors slamming made them both jump. Mariana picked up Lucas and held him close. "Stay in here," Sofia said firmly. "I'll see who it is." But before Sofia could reach the door, it swung open. Carlos stood there, as handsome and well-dressed as Mariana remembered, but his eyes were cold. Behind him stood another man in an expensive suit. His lawyer, she guessed. "There you are," Carlos said, his voice smooth, but his smile not reaching. His eyes. You're a hard woman to find, Mariana. Get out, Mariana said, her arms tightening around Lucas. You're not welcome here. Carlos stepped into the kitchen, looking around with distaste. So this is where you've been hiding my son? In some backwater farm in the middle of nowhere? Lucas, sensing his mother's fear, buried his face in her neck. Your son? Mariana laughed bitterly. You've never been a father to him. You left the moment I told you I was pregnant. Water under the bridge, Carlos said dismissively. I'm here now and I'm prepared to do the right thing. He turned to the man beside him. Mr. Reynolds here has prepared the papers. You'll have visitation rights, of course, and a generous allowance. I don't want your money, Mariana snapped. And Lucas stays with me. Carlos's smile faded. Don't be difficult, Mariana. My father's campaign begins next month. We need to present a united front. You mean you need to pretend you're not a deadbeat dad? She fired back. The lawyer stepped forward, his expression stern. Ms. Silva, my client is willing to be generous despite your uncooperative attitude. However, should you refuse to comply, we are prepared to file for full custody. On what grounds? Sophia demanded, standing protectively beside Mariana. Instability, the lawyer said smoothly. No permanent residence, spotty employment history, removing the child from his home without proper notification to the father. Because his father abandoned us, Mariana cried, tears of anger filling her eyes. Your word against his, the lawyer said with a shrug, and I think we both know whose word carries more weight in court. Carlos took a step closer. Be reasonable. Mariana, you can't win this. Just then the back door burst open and Rodrigo stormed in, his face tight with anger. What's going on here? Farm business is it now to interfere in family matters? Carlos sneered, looking Rodrigo up and down. When it happens on my property, yes, Rodrigo said, moving to stand beside Mariana. These gentlemen were just leaving. Not without my son, Carlos insisted. He's not going anywhere with you, Rodrigo said, his voice dangerously quiet. The lawyer cleared his throat. Sir, this is a legal matter between Ms. Silva and my client. Then handle it legally, Rodrigo responded. Until there's a court order, Lucas stays with his mother. On my land, where I say who comes and goes. You're making a mistake, Carlos warned. My family has influence. So do I, Rodrigo countered. Now get off my property before I have you removed. Something in Rodrigo's tone must have convinced them he meant business. Carlos gave Mariana one last cold look. This isn't over. We'll be back with a court order. After they left, Mariana collapsed into a chair, still clutching Lucas. The boy was crying now, frightened by the tension. It's okay, baby, she soothed, though her own voice trembled. Everything's okay. I should have been here, Rodrigo said, kneeling beside her chair. You came when it mattered, Mariana said, reaching for his hand. But Carlos is right. It's not over. His family has money, connections. They'll find a judge who'll side with them. Then we'll fight back, Rodrigo insisted. I know people too, good people who'll stand up for what's right. That night, after Lucas finally fell asleep, exhausted from the day's stress, Mariana found Rodrigo in his study, on the phone with someone he called Judge Thomas. An old friend of my father's, he explained after hanging up. He's retired, now but still respected in legal circles. He's going to recommend a good family lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer, Mariana said. I can, Rodrigo replied simply. I can't let you do that. You can't stop me either, he said with a small smile. Then more seriously, Mariana, I meant what I said before. There's a place for you and Lucas here. I care about you both. And I care about you, she admitted, the words slipping out before she could stop them. That's why I can't let you get tangled up in my problems. Too late, Rodrigo said, stepping closer and taking her hands in his. I'm already tangled. His eyes held hers and Mariana felt a warmth spread through her chest. He was so different from Carlos, solid where Carlos was showy, kind where Carlos was cruel, honest where Carlos was manipulative. I'm scared, she whispered. I know, he said softly, but you're not alone anymore. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, Rodrigo leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle and brief, but it sent a jolt through Mariana that left her breathless. When he pulled back, his eyes searched hers, uncertain. I've wanted to do that since the day you arrived with Lucas in your arms. Mariana reached up and touched his face, feeling the roughness of his beard against her palm. I'm glad you did, she whispered. For a moment they stood there, something new and fragile blooming between them. Then Lucas's cry broke the silence. He has nightmares sometimes, Mariana explained, reluctantly stepping back. Go to him, Rodrigo said. We'll talk more tomorrow. As Mariana soothed her son back to sleep, singing the Portuguese lullabies her own mother had sung to her, she felt a strange mix of fear and hope. Carlos's threats hung over them like storm clouds, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was facing the storm alone. The next morning, Mariana woke to find the farm unusually busy. Men she'd never seen before were working around the property, fixing fences, reinforcing gates. Friends from neighboring farms, Sophia explained as they watched from the kitchen window. Rodrigo called them last night, said he needed to secure the property. Later, when Rodrigo came in for lunch, Mariana pulled him aside. What's going on? Just taking precautions, he said, not quite meeting her eyes. Rodrigo, he sighed. The lawyer called this morning. They're filing for emergency. Custody today, claiming you're unstable and Lucas is in danger. Mariana felt the blood drain from her face. No. It's just a tactic, Rodrigo assured her, taking her shoulders gently. Judge Thomas says these things take time, even with so-called emergencies. We have at least a few days to prepare. Or they could show up with a court order tomorrow, Mariana said, her voice breaking. Rodrigo's expression hardened with determination. If they do, they'll have to get past me first. That afternoon, while Mariana tried to keep Lucas occupied inside, she watched through the window as more vehicles arrived. Neighbors bringing food, offering support. Word had spread quickly about the city man trying to take a child from his mother. The Costas have been in this valley for generations, Sophia told her. People here stand by their own. But I'm not. You are now, Sophia interrupted firmly. You and Lucas both. That night, after everyone had gone, Rodrigo found Mariana sitting by Lucas's bed, watching him sleep. You should rest, he said softly. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. I can't, she replied. Every time I close my eyes, I see them taking him away. Rodrigo knelt beside her chair. Look at me, Mariana. When she did, he continued, I won't let that happen, I promise you. She wanted to believe him, but fear had been her companion for too long. You can't promise that, the law might not be on our side. Then we'll change the equation, Rodrigo said, taking her hand. There's one thing we could do that would make it much harder for them to separate you and Lucas. What? Rodrigo took a deep breath. Marry me. Marry you? Mariana's voice was barely above a whisper. She stared at Rodrigo, trying to process his words. Rodrigo still held her hand, his expression earnest. It would give Lucas more protection, a stable home, 2 parents, my name. The courts favor intact families. But marriage? Mariana pulled her hand away gently. Rodrigo, you can't just marry someone to solve a problem. That's not why I'm asking, he said, his voice low and intense. Yes, it would help with the custody issue, but I wouldn't suggest it if I didn't already care deeply for you and Lucas. Mariana stood up, needing space to think. Her mind was spinning. This is too fast, we barely know each other. Sometimes you just know, Rodrigo said, rising to his feet. Maria and I only knew each other 3 months before we got engaged. The mention of his late wife made Mariana pause. And what would she think about this? About you marrying someone so quickly, out of necessity? Pain flashed across Rodrigo's face. Maria would want me to be happy, to help a child in need. He took a step closer. I never thought I'd feel this way again after she died, but then you and Lucas showed up on my doorstep and something changed. I need time to think, Mariana said, overwhelmed by his confession and the weight of the decision before her. We might not have much time, Rodrigo reminded her gently. Carlos could come back with a court order any day. I know. Mariana looked down at Lucas, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm surrounding him. Let me sleep on it, please. Rodrigo nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you both. After he left, Mariana sat by Lucas's bed for hours, torn between fear and hope. Marriage to Rodrigo would provide security, protection. But what about love? Could she marry a man she was just beginning to have feelings for? And what if his feelings were more about saving them than truly loving them? Morning found Mariana exhausted, but resolute. She found Rodrigo at the breakfast table, reviewing papers, and with a grey-haired man she didn't recognize. "This is Arthur Thompson," Rodrigo introduced. "The lawyer Judge Thomas recommended." Arthur stood and shook Mariana's hand. "Ms. Silva, Rodrigo has explained your situation. I won't sugarcoat it. The Mendoza family has significant influence, but that doesn't mean they'll win." Mariana sat down, accepting the coffee Sophia placed before her. "What are our options?" "We fight," Arthur said simply. "We gather character witnesses, show your stability as a mother, prove Carlos abandoned his responsibilities. It won't be easy, and it might get ugly." "And if we lose?" Mariana asked, voicing her greatest fear. Arthur's expression softened. "There's always the possibility of joint custody, but given Carlos's sudden interest after years of absence, I'd argue strongly against it." "There's another option," Rodrigo said quietly, looking at Mariana. "I told Arthur about my proposal." Arthur nodded. "Marriage would strengthen your position considerably, Miss Silva. It would provide immediate stability, financial and emotional. Courts are reluctant to disrupt a child's environment when there's a loving family unit. But is it right to marry just for this reason?" Mariana asked, looking between the two men. "Only you can answer that," Arthur replied kindly. "But I should mention time is of the essence. I've heard from colleagues that the Mendozas are pushing for an emergency hearing as early as next week." When Arthur left, promising to begin preparing their case, Mariana followed Rodrigo out to the porch. "A week," she said, the reality sinking in. They could take Lucas in a week. Rodrigo turned to her, determination in his eyes. "They won't. We won't let them. Your proposal," Mariana began, heart pounding. "Is it just about protecting us? I need to know." Rodrigo took her hands in his. "When Maria died, I thought that part of me died too. I threw myself into the farm, shut everyone out. Then you arrived, this brave woman with a sad little boy, and something woke up inside me." His voice softened. "The proposal came now because of the urgency, yes, but my feelings for you are real, Mariana. I wouldn't offer marriage otherwise." Mariana searched his face and found only sincerity. "I care about you too," she admitted. "More than I thought possible after everything with Carlos. But marriage, it's such a big step." "It is," Rodrigo agreed. "And in perfect circumstances we'd have more time. But life rarely gives us perfect circumstances." Mariana thought of the past 2 years, the struggle, the loneliness, the constant fear. Then she thought of the past few weeks at Serra Dourada, the peace she'd found, the way Lucas had blossomed, the tenderness in Rodrigo's eyes when he looked at them. "Yes," she said finally, "I'll marry you." The simple ceremony took place 3 days later in the farm's garden, with Judge Thomas officiating. Sophia had decorated the area with wildflowers and ribbons. Lucas wore a tiny suit that Sophia had altered from one of Rodrigo's childhood outfits found in the attic. Neighbors and workers from the farm gathered to witness the union, their presence a testament to how quickly Mariana and Lucas had been accepted into the community. Mariana wore a simple, white dress that Sophia and the neighboring women had helped her find in town. As she walked toward Rodrigo, who waited beneath an arch of sunflowers, she felt a strange mix of emotions: anxiety about the rushed nature of their union, fear of what Carlos might still do, but also a growing warmth whenever she looked at the man who had opened his home and heart to her and Lucas. "Mariana and Rodrigo have chosen to unite their lives in marriage," Judge Thomas announced. "While their journey together is just beginning, they already share the most important foundation: care for each other and for young Lucas." Rodrigo took Mariana's hands, his eyes never leaving hers as they exchanged vows. When he slipped the ring on her finger, his mother's ring, Sophia had told her, his hand was steady and sure. "I now pronounce you husband and wife, Judge Thomas declared. "Rodrigo, you may kiss your bride." The kiss was gentle, reverent. When they turned to face their guests, Lucas ran up to them, arms outstretched. Rodrigo scooped him up, and for a moment the three of them stood together, a family united despite the unusual circumstances that had brought them there. "Mo," Lucas said happily, patting Rodrigo's cheek. "That's right, buddy," Rodrigo said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm here to stay." The small reception that followed was filled with warmth and good wishes. Arthur Thompson pulled them aside briefly to let them know he'd filed the necessary paperwork to begin adoption proceedings. "The marriage will help," he assured them, "but having Rodrigo legally adopt Lucas would provide the strongest protection." As the sun began to set, guests gradually departed, leaving the new family alone. Sophia had taken Lucas to her cottage for the night, a wedding gift, she'd said with a wink that made Mariana blush. Rodrigo led Mariana to the main house, now officially her home. At the threshold he paused. "I want you to know," he said seriously, "I don't expect anything from you. This happened quickly, and we're still getting to know each other. We can take all the time you need." Mariana felt a rush of gratitude for his understanding. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything you've done for us." "We're a family now," Rodrigo replied simply. "That's what matters." The week that followed was a strange blend of newlywed awkwardness and mounting tension as they waited for Carlos's next move. Rodrigo moved Mariana and Lucas's things to the master bedroom while he took the guest room down the hall. Each day they settled more into the routine of family life, with Rodrigo teaching Lucas about the farm and Mariana adapting to her new role as the lady of the house rather than just the cook's assistant. Despite the circumstances, Mariana found herself growing more comfortable with Rodrigo. Their conversations flowed easily over meals and quiet evenings on the porch. Sometimes, when their hands brushed accidentally or their eyes met across the room, she felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with gratitude and everything to do with deepening attraction. One evening, after putting Lucas to bed, Mariana found Rodrigo on the porch swing, looking up at the stars. She sat beside him, and they swung in comfortable silence for a while. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she finally asked. "Getting married so quickly?" Rodrigo turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "I think sometimes life gives us choices we never expected to make, but that doesn't make them wrong. I'm starting to care for you," Mariana admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "In a way that scares me." "Why does it scare you?" "Because the last time I opened my heart, it nearly destroyed me. And now it's not just my heart at risk, it's Lucas's too." Rodrigo took her hand, his touch warm and steady. "I'm not Carlos, Mariana. I won't hurt you or Lucas. That's a promise I intend to keep for the rest of my life." His words washed over her like a balm, easing fears she'd carried for too long. Slowly, she leaned toward him, and their lips met in a kiss that held none of the hesitation of their first. This time there was only warmth and a growing certainty that whatever had brought them together, necessity, fate, or simple human connection, it was real. Their moment of peace was shattered the next morning when a sheriff's car pulled up the drive, followed by Carlos's sleek black sedan. "They're here," Sophia said, rushing into the kitchen where Mariana was feeding Lucas breakfast. "The sheriff and that man." Mariana felt the blood drain from her face. Rodrigo, who had been at the table with them, immediately stood up. "Get Arthur." "On the phone," he told Sophia. "Tell him to meet us at the courthouse as soon as possible." The sheriff, a middle-aged man with a weathered face and uncomfortable expression, entered first. "Mrs. Costa," he said, nodding to Mariana, "I have a court order to bring your son Lucas to a custody hearing." Carlos stepped in behind him, a smug smile on his face. "Seems you've been busy, Mariana. A rushed marriage won't change anything." Rodrigo moved to stand beside Mariana, putting a protective arm around her shoulders. "This is our home and Lucas is our son. You have no right to come in here making demands." "Actually, he does," said a thin man in an expensive suit who entered. Behind Carlos, the lawyer from before. "We have a court order signed by Judge Rivera. The hearing is set for today at noon." "Today?" Mariana gasped. "That's not enough notice." "Emergency hearing," the lawyer said with a shrug. "Given the Unusual circumstances. A sudden marriage to a man Lucas barely knows. The court has concerns about Ms. Silva's judgment. That's Mrs. Costa now, Rodrigo corrected firmly. And I've known Lucas longer than his biological father has. The sheriff looked increasingly uncomfortable. Look, I'm just doing my job here. The court wants to see the boy and evaluate the situation. You folks are welcome to follow us to the courthouse. I'm not letting Lucas out of my sight, Mariana said, fear making her voice shake. Ma'am, I have an order. Let me see it, Rodrigo interrupted, holding out his hand for the document. The sheriff handed it over and Rodrigo read it carefully. This says Lucas needs to appear in court. It doesn't say he has to travel in your vehicle or be separated from his mother. The sheriff hesitated, then nodded. That's correct. As long as you bring him to the hearing, that satisfies the order. Then we'll meet you there, Rodrigo said firmly. With our lawyer present, Carlos's smirk faded slightly. Playing legal games won't help you, farm boy. My father has Judge Rivera in his pocket. That's enough, the sheriff warned. Mr. Mendoza, comments like that could be seen as attempting to interfere with the judicial process. After they left, Mariana collapsed into a chair, trembling. Lucas, sensing her distress, climbed into her lap. Mama sad? He asked, his little face creased with worry. No, baby, she managed, holding him close. Mama's okay. We're all okay. Rodrigo knelt beside them. Sophia reached Arthur. He's meeting us at the courthouse. He's bringing Judge Thomas and 3 character witnesses from town. He took Mariana's hand. We're going to fight this together. The county courthouse was an imposing building of gray stone. As they walked up the steps, Mariana carrying Lucas and Rodrigo beside them, they saw Carlos and his lawyer already, waiting. Whatever happens in there, Rodrigo said quietly, remember that I love you both. We're a family now, and nothing can change that. Mariana looked at him in surprise. It was the first time he'd used the word love. I love you too, she whispered back, realizing as she said it that it was true. Somehow in the midst of chaos and fear, she had fallen in love with this steady, kind man who had become their protector, their safe harbor. As they entered the courthouse, Lucas reached for Rodrigo's hand. Mo, come too, he insisted. That's right, buddy, Rodrigo said, taking the small hand in his. We're all going together. Inside, they found Arthur waiting with Judge Thomas and several familiar faces from town, the school teacher, the town doctor, and Pastor Williams from the local church. Ready? Arthur asked, his expression serious but determined. Mariana took a deep breath and nodded, squeezing Rodrigo's hand. Together, they walked into the courtroom to fight for their family. The courtroom was smaller than Mariana had expected, with wooden benches and the smell of old books. Judge Rivera, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, sat behind a large desk, eyeing everyone as they took their places. Case number 4753, custody hearing for minor child Lucas Silva, the court clerk announced. That's Lucas Costa now, Arthur corrected, standing to address the court. Your Honor, I'd like to note for the record that my clients, Rodrigo and Mariana Costa, are now legally married, and Mr. Costa has filed to legally adopt Lucas. Judge Rivera looked over her glasses at them. Yes, I see that. A very recent marriage from the paperwork. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Mariana felt her stomach drop at the judge's tone. Carlos's lawyer, Mr. Reynolds, stood with a smug smile. Exactly our point, Your Honor. This rushed marriage is clearly an attempt to circumvent Mr. Mendoza's parental rights. We believe it demonstrates Mrs. Costa's pattern of unstable decision-making. Your Honor, Arthur countered, my client's marriage, while recent, is genuine, and I'd like to point out that Mr. Mendoza has shown no interest in his son for over 2 years. He abandoned Ms. Silva when she was pregnant and has provided no support, financial or otherwise. Carlos leaned forward. I didn't know where they were. She disappeared with my son. After you left her, Rodrigo said, his voice tight with anger. Order, Judge Rivera said sharply. Mr. Reynolds, present your case. Reynolds approached the bench with a thick folder. Your Honor, we have evidence of Mrs. Costa's unstable living situation prior to her hasty marriage. Multiple residences, temporary. Jobs no permanent address until recently. In contrast, Mr. Mendoza comes from a stable, prominent family and can provide everything the child needs. Except love, Mariana couldn't help saying. Judge Rivera gave her a stern look. Mrs. Costa, you'll have your turn to speak. For the next hour, Reynolds painted Carlos as a concerned father who had been desperately searching for his son, while portraying Mariana as unstable and unfit. Mariana sat trembling beside Rodrigo, who kept a reassuring hand on her arm. Lucas had fallen asleep in her lap, oblivious to the battle being waged over his future. Finally, Arthur stood to present their side. He called Judge Thomas first, who spoke of Rodrigo's sterling reputation in the community and the legal validity of their marriage. "I've known the Costa family for 30 years, Judge Thomas said firmly. Rodrigo is a man of honor who would not enter into marriage lightly, regardless of the circumstances. Next came Dr. Peterson, the town physician, who had examined Lucas shortly after his arrival at Serra Dorada. The child was underweight and showed signs of stress when I first saw him, Dr. Peterson testified. When I examined him last week, he had gained weight, showed normal development, and appeared happy and well-adjusted. In my professional opinion, his current home environment is extremely beneficial to his well-being." Pastor Williams and the schoolteacher, Mrs. Blackwell, both testified to Mariana's devotion as a mother and the positive changes they'd observed in Lucas since his arrival in the community. "I've rarely seen a child so attached to both his mother and his stepfather," Mrs. Blackwell noted. "Lucas calls for Mo, his name for Mr. Costa, constantly during our children's church program." Finally, Arthur called Mariana to testify. With Lucas still sleeping in Rodrigo's arms, she took the stand, her legs shaking but her voice steady as she recounted the past 2 years. "When I told Carlos I was pregnant, he left that same night, left a note saying he wasn't ready to be a father." She looked directly at Carlos as she continued. "I called his parents, thinking they should know about their grandchild. They offered me money to take care of the problem and disappear." Carlos shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I struggled, yes," Mariana admitted. "I worked whatever jobs I could find, moved when I couldn't make rent. But Lucas was always cared for, always loved. When I heard about the position at Serra Dorada, it seemed like a chance for stability. I never imagined I'd also find love there." She looked at Rodrigo, who met her gaze with unwavering support. "Rodrigo didn't have to care about us. He didn't have to open his home, his heart, but he did. He loves Lucas like his own son, and I love him for that, and for so many other reasons." Reynolds stood for cross-examination. "Mrs. Costa, isn't it true that you married Mr. Costa just days after learning of Mr. Mendoza's intent to seek custody?" "Yes," Mariana answered honestly, "but not for the reasons you're implying. Rodrigo and I had already developed feelings for each other. The timing was accelerated because of Carlos's threats, but our marriage is real." "So you admit the marriage was rushed because of the custody situation?" "It happened sooner than it might have otherwise," Mariana replied, "but it would have happened regardless." When she returned to her seat, Rodrigo squeezed her hand, pride evident in his eyes. Last to testify was Carlos himself, who put on a show of remorse and concern. "I made mistakes," he admitted smoothly. "I was young and scared, but I've grown up now and I want to be a father to my son. He deserves the opportunities my family can provide, the best schools, financial security, connections." "And what about love?" Judge Rivera asked unexpectedly. "What about stability, Mr. Mendoza? Your interest in the child seems to have developed quite suddenly, coinciding with your father's political campaign." Carlos looked taken aback by the direct question. My feelings for my son aren't related to my father's campaign. And yet, according to Mrs. Costa's testimony, you made no effort to find them for 2 years. No child support, no birthday cards, no inquiries through mutual acquaintances." "I didn't know where they were," Carlos insisted. "Your Honor," Reynolds interjected, "the past is regrettable, but we're focused on the child's future. Mr. Mendoza is prepared to provide everything Lucas needs." Judge Rivera removed her glasses, looking tired. "I've heard enough for today. This court will take a 30-minute recess before rendering a decision. As the judge left the courtroom, Mariana turned to Arthur, panic rising. "Only 30 minutes. Is that normal?" "No," Arthur admitted, looking concerned. "Usually these deliberations take days, sometimes weeks." "It's the Mendoza influence," Rodrigo said grimly. "They're pushing for a quick ruling." Carlos approached their table, his lawyer trailing behind him. "This doesn't have to be ugly," he said in a low voice. "I'm willing to be generous in the settlement. You can have visitation rights, Mariana. Regular visits, supervised, of course." "Supervised?" Mariana repeated incredulously. "You want to supervise me with my own son? The son I've raised alone while you were nowhere to be found?" "Be reasonable," Carlos hissed. "You can't win against my family. The sooner you accept that, the easier." "This will be for everyone." Rodrigo stood up, Lucas still sleeping against his shoulder. "Let me make something clear, Mendoza. Lucas is our son, mine and Mariana's. We've raised him, loved him, been there for every nightmare and every smile. A piece of paper doesn't make you a father." "No, but a court order makes me his legal guardian." Carlos shot back. "And that's what I'm going to get." After Carlos walked away, Mariana felt tears threatening. What if he's right? What if they win? Rodrigo shifted Lucas to his other shoulder, the boy still miraculously asleep despite the tension around him. "Then we appeal. We fight. We never stop fighting for our family." The 30 minutes felt like an eternity. Mariana paced the hallway, outside the courtroom while Rodrigo sat with Lucas, who had finally woken up and was playing quietly with a small wooden toy Rodrigo had made him. Sophia arrived with sandwiches and coffee for everyone, her worried eyes meeting Mariana's. "Any news?" "Not yet," Mariana said, her stomach too knotted for food. "The judge is still deliberating. The whole town is praying," Sophia assured her. "Everyone's pulling for you three." When they were called back into the courtroom, Mariana felt lightheaded with fear. She gripped Rodrigo's hand so tightly, her knuckles turned white, but he didn't flinch. Judge Rivera looked serious as she settled behind the bench. "This court has considered the evidence presented by both parties regarding the custody of minor child Lucas Silva Costa. The formal use of Lucas's new last name made Mariana's heart leap with hope. Cases like these are never easy," the judge continued. "The court must consider not only legal rights, but, more importantly, the best interests of the child." She looked directly at Carlos. "Mr. Mendoza, while you are the biological father, biology alone does not make a parent. Your absence during the first 2 years of your son's life and the suspicious timing of your sudden interest raise serious concerns about your motivations." Carlos shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Mrs. Costa," Judge Rivera turned to Mariana, "you have proven yourself a devoted mother under difficult circumstances. The stability you have now found at Serra Dourada Farm and your marriage to Mr. Costa appear to provide an ideal environment for raising your son." Mariana felt tears of relief forming. "Mr. Costa," the judge continued, "your willingness to open your home and heart to both Mrs. Costa and her son speaks to your character. The witnesses have attested to the genuine bond you formed with Lucas, despite the short time you've known him." Judge Rivera straightened the papers before her. "It is the finding of this court that the best interests of the child will be served by remaining in the primary custody of his mother, Mariana Costa, and his stepfather, Rodrigo Costa, at their residence at Serra Dourada Farm." Mariana let out a sob of relief, clutching Rodrigo's arm. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "this court grants Mr. Costa's petition to legally adopt Lucas, with the provision that Mr. Mendoza be allowed visitation rights on a limited, supervised basis to be determined by a court-appointed mediator." Carlos stood up angrily. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. He's my son." "Mr. Mendoza," Judge Rivera said sharply, "your outburst only reinforces my decision. If you wish to be part of your son's life, you will need to demonstrate the maturity and stability that real parenting requires. For now, supervised visitation is all this court is willing to grant. Court is adjourned." With a bang of her gavel, it was over. They had won. Outside the courthouse, Carlos stormed past them, his lawyer hurrying after him. "This isn't over," he muttered as he passed. But Mariana barely heard him. She was too busy embracing Rodrigo and Lucas. the three of them holding each other as tears of joy and relief flowed freely. "We did it," she whispered. "We really did it." "Did what, Mama?" Lucas asked, confused by all the emotion. Rodrigo knelt down to the boy's level. "It means you're officially a Costa now, buddy, just like me and your mama." Lucas considered this for a moment, then broke into a wide smile. "Lucas Costa," he said, testing the name. Then, looking up at Rodrigo, "Mo is my daddy now?" Rodrigo's eyes filled with tears. "That's right, if that's what you want to call me. Daddy," Lucas said decisively, reaching up to be held. Rodrigo scooped him up, holding him close. Arthur approached with Judge Thomas, both men smiling broadly. "Congratulations," Arthur said. "It's not often we see justice prevail so clearly." "I must say," Judge Thomas added, "Judge Rivera surprised me. She's known to be quite conservative in custody cases. What changed her mind, do you think?" Mariana asked. "The truth," Arthur said simply. "Sometimes, even with all the influence in the world, the truth manages to shine through." As they drove back to Serra Dourada, Lucas fell asleep in his car seat, exhausted by the day's events. Mariana reached across the seat to take Rodrigo's hand. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything, for fighting for us, for loving us." "No need to thank me for that," Rodrigo replied, his eyes on the road but his voice warm with emotion. "You and Lucas, you saved me as much as I helped you. Before you came, I was just existing, not living." "I was so scared to trust again," Mariana admitted. "After Carlos, I thought I'd never let anyone close enough to hurt me. But you were different from the start." When they arrived home, Sophia was waiting on the porch with several neighbors. News of their victory had already spread through town. Cheers erupted as they got out of the car. "Welcome home, Costas," someone called out, and everyone laughed. That night, after a small celebration, and after Lucas was tucked into bed with his new official last name, Mariana and Rodrigo stood on the porch, looking up at the stars. "It's been a whirlwind," Mariana said, leaning against Rodrigo's shoulder. "Sometimes I have to remind myself it's all real." "It's real," Rodrigo assured her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "We're real. When you proposed, you said there was room in your heart for both of us," Mariana remembered. "I was so scared then, so unsure." "And now?" Rodrigo asked, turning to face her. Mariana looked up at the man who had become her husband, her partner, her rock. "Now I know that love can grow in the most unexpected places, even in hearts that have been broken. You gave Lucas and me a home when we needed it most. You fought for us when no one else would." Rodrigo gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Having you and Lucas here, it's like the farm came back to life, like I came back to life." Inside, they heard Lucas call out in his sleep. Both of them turned automatically toward the sound. "He still has nightmares sometimes," Mariana said, "about being taken away." "They'll fade," Rodrigo assured her. "We'll make sure of it." Together, they went inside to check on their son. Lucas had kicked off his blankets but was still sleeping peacefully. Rodrigo gently tucked him back in while Mariana watched, her heart full. "He called you Daddy today," she whispered as they left the room. "How did that feel?" Rodrigo's eyes shimmered with emotion. "Like coming home, like everything I lost was somehow returned to me, even better than before." In their bedroom, their shared bedroom now, Rodrigo took Mariana in his arms. "I know our marriage started under unusual circumstances," he said, "but I want you to know I fall more in love with you every day. This isn't just about Lucas anymore. It's about us, you and me." "I know," Mariana said softly. "I feel the same way. When I came here, I was just looking for safety, for stability. I never expected to find love. And now I know that my heart has room for both of you," she said, echoing his words from what seemed like a lifetime ago. "More than room, it's full to bursting." Their kiss was tender, full of promise and the certainty that what had begun as necessity had truly blossomed into love. 3 months later, Serra Dourada farm was in full bloom. The sunflowers Rodrigo had planted outside Mariana's window were now tall and vibrant, their golden faces turned toward the sun. Lucas, now officially Lucas Costa, raced around the yard with the puppy Rodrigo had brought home as a surprise last month. "Careful, buddy," Rodrigo called from the porch where he was repairing a rocking chair. "Don't let Rex pull you down the hill." "He won't, Daddy," Lucas called back, his voice confident and happy, so different from the sad, quiet boy who had arrived at the farm. Mariana came out of the house, wiping her hands on her apron. She paused to watch her son and the puppy playing, then turned to her husband with a smile. "Look at him," she said, "so happy, so free. Sometimes I can hardly believe how much has changed." Rodrigo set aside his tools and pulled her into his arms. "All for the better," he murmured against her hair. "Definitely." "For the better," she agreed, a secret smile playing on her lips. Rodrigo noticed. "What is it? You've been smiling like that all morning." Mariana took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "I went to see Dr. Peterson yesterday. It's still early, but it seems Lucas is going to be a big brother." Rodrigo's expression transformed from confusion to wonder to pure joy. "A baby? We're having a baby?" Mariana nodded, tears of happiness in her eyes. "In about 7 months." With a whoop of delight, Rodrigo lifted her off her feet and spun her around, drawing Lucas's attention from across the yard. "What's happening?" the boy called, running toward them with Rex bounding at his heels. Rodrigo set Mariana down gently and crouched to meet Lucas at eye level. "Your mama and I have some news, buddy. How would you feel about being a big brother?" Lucas's eyes widened. "Like a real big brother? With a baby?" "That's right," Mariana said, kneeling beside Rodrigo. "There's going to be a new baby in our family." Lucas considered this seriously, then broke into a wide smile. "I can teach the baby all about the farm. And Rex, you'll be the best big brother ever," Rodrigo assured him. That evening, as the sun set over Serra Dourada, casting the farmhouse, in a golden glow the three of them, soon to be 4, sat on the porch swing. Lucas, tired from a day of play, was dozing against Rodrigo's side while Mariana leaned against his other shoulder. "Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out?" Mariana asked quietly. "If I hadn't found that job posting, if we hadn't come here," Rodrigo shook his head. "I believe some things are meant to be. You and Lucas were meant to find your way here, to me. Even with all the drama with Carlos, the rushed wedding, the custody battle, even with all that," Rodrigo said firmly, "sometimes the path to happiness isn't straight or easy, but that doesn't make the happiness any less real when you find it." Mariana placed a hand on her still flat stomach, thinking of the new life growing there. "When I arrived here, I told myself all I wanted was a roof over our heads and steady work. I was so afraid to want more." "And now?" Rodrigo asked, covering her hand with his. "Now I want it all," she said, smiling up at him. "The whole dream, you, Lucas, the baby, this farm, our future together, everything." "You have it," Rodrigo promised, kissing her softly. "We all do." As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Lucas stirred against Rodrigo's side. "Daddy?" he murmured sleepily. "Yes, buddy. Are we going to stay at the farm forever?" Rodrigo looked at Mariana, love shining in his eyes, before answering their son. "Yes, Lucas. This is our home. This is where we belong." "Together," Mariana added softly. Lucas nodded, satisfied, and closed his eyes again. "Good," he whispered. "I like it here." Rodrigo pulled them both closer, his family nestled securely in his arms. "Remember what I said the day you arrived?" he asked Mariana. "That there was room for 2 in my heart?" "I remember," she said, thinking of how far they'd come since that day. Rodrigo smiled, looking at Lucas and then placing his hand gently on Mariana's stomach. "Turns out there's room for even more." Mariana leaned up to kiss him, her heart so full it might burst. "Then let our hearts be like this farm," she whispered, echoing the words from their beginning. "Full of space, full of love." As night settled, over Serra Dourada farm, the little family remained on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms, their hearts indeed as vast as the land around them, with room enough for all the love in the world. The end.